The price of a god's death is a wound. Asgard's golden halls choke under Fimbulwinter's first snow. Kratos crosses the threshold of the 9 realms. The air reeks of an ancient god's dying breath. Zeus' soul shattered in Go W3, fracturous a key turned in an unseen lock. A hunger stirs where his power once burned. Fracturous a key turned in an unseen lock. The Spartan red cape billows, a banner of defiance. Kratos treads the temple of Athens where Ares awaits. Blood-soaked earth whispers of old debts. This is not a duel, this is a son repaying a father. The cape, once a shroud of rage, now rejects the past that forged him. Zeus' soul, shattered in his final breath, seeps into the void. A hunger stirs, chains of old gods snap, power forbidden, unbound. What force did he awaken? Not war, not fate. The echo of a god's death unraveling the cosmos. A legacy not his to bear. Kratos, the demigod son of Zeus, an immortal Spartan woman, Callisto, a child of war and whispered sins. Zeus, fearing his own children would repeat the betrayal that shackled him, forged a throne of iron and dread. He ruled not as a king but as a shadow of his father's cruelty. The cycle turned, the blood thickened. Kratos knew only the weight of chains. His rage was a weapon Zeus had honed. Yet when the blade fell, when the Titan's soul was ripped from its body, the cosmos did not weep, it screamed. A force older than Olympus, colder than Asgard, stirred in the void left behind. Not a god, not a curse. A fracture in the fabric of divinity itself. Zeus' soul, shattered by mortal hands, became a storm without end. Its fragments seeped into realms unready for their hunger. The Norse cosmos, vast and unknowing, trembled as the old order's poison took root. Kratos, once a pawn in a god's fear, now bore the burden of what he had unmade, a power without name. A wound without edge. What does a god's death look like when it is not peace but a door? When the man who killed the king becomes the king of the dead, the answer lies in the silence after the scream. In the eyes of a warrior who sees not victory but a legacy of ash, a soul's echo unraveling the world. The blade's shadow still burned in his hand. A god's death does not end with a body, it fractures. Zeus' soul, split by betrayal, seeped into the void world, unbound. Kratos did not see the storm coiling in his grip. Vengeance is a fire that roasts its bearer. Each strike against Olympus fed the tempest. The blade, once a weapon of execution, became a vessel. A god's essence, unshaped, does not rest, it hungered. What stirs when a father's soul is torn by his son's hand? Not justice, not peace. A force older than Olympus, unchained. Kratos' rage carved a path, but the path had a will. The fragments clung to him, shards of divinity, sharp as grief. They did not empower, they corrupted. A god's soul is not meant to bleed into the world. It remakes the world in its spilled image. The Norse cosmos did not tremble from Kratos' wrath. It cracked from the weight of Zeus' ghost. A king's vengeance birthed a plague. Every step toward retribution dragged a shadow longer than his sword, the blade that killed him, the blade that carried him. The blade that now bore a god's poison into realms unready for its hunger. No victory, only a door. And behind it a power without face or name, only the echo of a father's scream reshaping the sky. The arena is no mere stage, it is the parchment where gods scrawl their final verses in blood. Olympus marble, Asgard's hall, Jotunheim's plain, each a verse in a hymn of ruin. When Kratos' blade split Zeus' chest, it did not sever a god, it shattered a prism. A soul once whole now fractured into 9 jagged shards. Each shard fell not to earth but into a realm. Yggdrasil's roots trembled. The 9 realms, that ancient lattice of cosmos and chaos, became the prison and the pulse. What stirs there? Not a name. Not a face, a hunger older than Valhalla's doors, older than the well of Erd. Zeus' essence, unbound, seeps through Yggdrasil's veins. It warps Midgard's skies, curdles the mead of the Aesir, whispers in the frost of Niflheim. The realms are no longer realms. They are wounds, each a vessel for a fragment's ache to reunite, to rebirth, to spill the balance. Kratos did not kill a god. He unraveled one, and unraveling is a slow fire. The 9 realms burn. Their embers carry a question. What collapses when a soul's weight exceeds the cosmos that holds it? The answer is not Ragnarok. It is something older, something the old gods feared, something that echoes and gathers and waits. Kratos' blade strikes, Zeus' head falls. the god's body stands a puppet without a master. For a moment the tyrant's form holds posture rigid, eyes hollow, then a fissure, not in flesh but in essence. The soul, once whole, now splinters. Each fragment carries a shard of divine will, a spark of tyranny. But this is no ordinary death. The cosmos does not weep, it convulses. A rift tears through the air, silent and vast. What stirs in that void? Not Ragnarok, not yet, but something deeper. The old gods did not fear Zeus' demise. They feared what his death would unearth, a power older than Olympus, older than time, a force that does not destroy, it devours. It unmakes and now it stirs. Kratos did not kill a god. He opened a wound in reality, and from it something breathes. The fragmented soul is not a seed, it is a key to what? The answer lies in the silence between heartbeats, in the spaces where light forgets to linger. The cosmos recoils, the void expands. And in that expansion, the first whisper of a name long erased from memory, a name that does not belong to man or God, but to the darkness that birthed them both. The blade's shadow lingers, the wound remains. And the power that waits in the marrow of the world begins to wake. The body falls, the mask shatters. 1,000 eyes blink open in the void. Zeus' soul does not rest. Its splinter sharp, seething each shard a prism of stolen ages. They drift, these cursed fragments, through realms unready for their hunger. The air scorches where they pass, mountains weep ichor. What power stirs when a god's essence is torn? Not death, not silence. A rot that feasts on balance. The 9 realms tremble as the shards embed in stone, blood, breath. They seek not to rule but to corrupt. A whisper threads the cosmos. Asterisk vessels asterisk are merely the first wound. The forbidden power was never his to wield. It is the thing that gnaws behind his rage, the shadow that outlives his name. Kratos did not kill Zeus, he unmade him. And in that unmaking the cosmos fractured. A god's soul is no mere light. It is a lock, now the key turns. Somewhere a child's laughter echoes with thunder. Somewhere a throne corrodes, the power waits. Not to be born, to be asterisk unbound asterisk. What wakes when the mask cracks, not a god, not yet. But the breath of what was buried before the first realm burned. A soul's last scream does not fade, it fractures. One shard of Zeus' fury coiled in the void, hungry, unwhole, not a god. Not yet, but a shadow with teeth, gnawing at the bones of the 9 realms. Its breath is frost on the edges of time. The old divine code cannot contain it. Where light once burned, now a hollow glows. Kratos' blade did not kill Zeus, it scattered him. A king of thunder, reduced to kindling for a fire no mortal hand can smother. What stirs in the ash is not justice. Not balance, a thing forged in the gap between endings and beginnings. Fimbulwinter did not fall from the sky. It rose from the wound left open by a god's death. The frost giants shiver for reason. The wolves in the dark howl not of hunger, but recognition. The entity feeds on chaos, yes, but also on asterisk memory asterisk. Of a world before order, before Asgard, before asterisk names asterisk. The 9 realms tremble under a new kind of law, not Mimir's wisdom. Not Odin's sacrifice, a reckoning written in the language of shattered divinity. Kratos and Atreus walked the ice of this storm and did not see the eye at its center. A god's soul does not die, it asterisk adopts asterisk. It asterisk waits asterisk. What wakes when the cold touches Yggdrasil's roots? Not an answer, a question. One the cosmos cannot yet answer, and beneath the snow something grins. The blade sank, the sky wept ash. Zeus' soul split like a storm, unbound light and shadow bleeding into the void. Kratos had sought release, he found a catalyst. Hope that fragile ember escaped the Titan's cage, but what ascends must also unravel. The fragments carried more than memory, they carried intent. A god's final breath is not silence, it is a seed. The cold seeped deeper, Yggdrasil's roots shivered, not from death, from recognition. Zeus' essence, fractured and feral, did not dissipate. It pooled in the cracks between realms, a wound with teeth. Mortals felt it first. Dreams turned to fire, crops withered, then the skies. Storms coiled without wind, the sun bled through fingers. A balance once held by divine weight now teetered on a knife's edge. Vengeance is a blade with 2 throats. Kratos severed a tyrant, he also unchained a tide. The soul's fragments did not sleep. They hungered not for power, for asterisk becoming asterisk. A god's soul once whole, now scattered, is a map. To the cosmos it was a riddle, to the void an invitation, hope that gift now curdled. Mortals clung to it like a rope of smoke, but hope is not a harbor, it is a spark in a dry plain. And sparks left unchecked become infernos, the realms trembled, not for Zeus, for what his death had birthed, a force without name. Without mercy. Only the echo of a question, asterisk what wakes when the cold touches Yggdrasil's roots, asterisk and beneath the snow something grins. Word count 211. Snow does not muffle the scream of broken oaths, Odin's spear shattered in his grip, Zeus' lightning died in Kratos' blade. Both gods fell not to fate, but to the weight of their own cyclist rulers consumed by the violence they codified. A soul torn from its body is not a soul, it is a storm without a sky. When Kratos wrenched Zeus' essence asunder, he did not end a tyranny. He unsealed a hunger older than the Titan's first breath. The Norse cosmos did not tremble from loss, it shuddered at recognition. Odin's eye, blind in life, saw in death. His fall was a prophecy fulfilled, the price of gods who trade eternity for dominion. Zeus' fragments seep into Yggdrasil's veins, no poison or seed. The roots do not answer. What wakes when the cold touches Yggdrasil's roots? The same thing that grins beneath the snow, the same thing that waits, patient, in every god's last gasp. The fractured soul shards pulse like dying stars, the 9 realms shudder. A god's death is never the end, only the first breath of what sleeps in the marrow of his bones. Zeus' essence torn from his throne splinters into 1,000 hungry echoes, each shard is a prison, each prison a wound. The void gnaws where light once burned. Kratos did not kill a god, he unmade one. The price of defiance, a legacy of fractures. The realms tremble not from loss, but from the thing now loose in the cracks. What stirs in the dark between Asgard and Tartarus? Not chaos, not order, something older than their war. The roots of Yggdrasil freeze. The world tree holds its breath. A god's final gasp is not silence. It is a key, and the door, always waiting. Always hungry, the camera lingers, the shards glow. Athena god's death is never the end. The shards do not rest, they hunger. In the frostbitten void between realms, one fragment coalesces cold, sharp, a will reborn. A god not of Olympus, but of shadow and storm, its purpose, to weave the threads of fate, to bind what was severed. But whose design does it